What we are going to take a look at is this vote by mail experiment and the Trump take on voting by mail in general. Trump posted this saying, check out this mail-in voting experiment.
If you know how to mail a letter, you already know how to mail in your vote.
How you doing? Good. Thank you very much.
But how long might it take for that vote to actually arrive and be counted?
Oh, you're welcome. Have a good afternoon.
We decided to test it, sending 100 mock ballots simulating 100 voters from locations all across Philadelphia to a P.O. box we set up to represent a local election office. A couple days later, we mailed 100 more using the same size envelopes and the same class of mail as real ballots here. To approximate the weight, we even folded mock votes into every one. In the following week, we checked our P.O. box for the results.
Mail pickup notice, there's more.
When we went to collect everything, though,
Nothing?
most of our votes seemed to be lost.
That's all I have back there right now. That's
You're short, huh? You're totally short. I believe in you.
All right, then. Have a good day.
Okay, take care.
We had to ask for a manager
I'm trying to do something about mail-in ballots.
and explain ourselves before someone finally found our votes.
What is this argument that, like, the USPS that's significantly underfunded for the biblical task it needs to engage in, that is not supposed to be run for profit anyway, one of the most important parts of American societal development, it was around before America was. It's like one of the most important things that we have. But regardless, what is this comparison that, like, this is going to be run like an election box or something? This is yet another consequence of underfunding fundamentally important institutions that provide a necessary and in a lot of instances life-saving service, and then acting like because it's underfunded, it's like it's bad and that we shouldn't be using it. Like, if the fire department is not able to put out all of the fires, the answer isn't to abolish the fire department. Like, no one thinks this way when it comes to the immediate, tangible, material impact that the abolition of the fire department would turn into. If there were existing private fire departments, the GOP would be trying to defund and privatize the fire department. The fire department used to be private. There were fire companies. You know what happened? Fire fucking spread to houses that had paid for the insurance from houses that had not paid for the fire insurance. So they realized, oh, this needs to be public. I don't think we can compare 100 votes with what seems to be a small personal P.O. box of the entire USPS with a whole ass election. Yeah, nobody is saying that there aren't going to be complications. As a matter of fact, everyone is saying that there are going to be significant complications with mail-in ballots. We had leeway. We had like 5 to 6 months to beef up the USPS, whereas Donald Trump has done the exact opposite. And with very limited power, tried to halt their processes as best as he can. Why is a private postal service solution bad then? Because the profit motive will eliminate life-saving necessary services. You are not going to get mail in Alaska with the profit motive. There's a reason why the USPS is contracting their services to UPS and FedEx, because FedEx and UPS does not want to go to bumfuck parts where your stupid racist fucking parents live, okay? That's it. That's literally it. All of these dumbass Arkansas, Alabama idiots who are like, yeah, who fucking privatize it, who gives a shit, don't recognize the reality that they will not get mail. Guess what? Cut your fucking racist parents out from any number of different life-saving services, I guess. Also, ironically, right now we are going through a change where brick and mortar retail is dying. So a lot of small businesses in America, in the future, are going to rely, as they are currently relying, on the United States Postal Service to ship packages. So if you truly give a fuck about small businesses Republicans claim they care about, then you should love the United States Postal Service, as many small business owners do.
Okay, thank you.
1, 2.
We soon discovered another problem: missorted mail. 2 pieces of it.
We got a birthday card from Mike to Ronnie. Have a sweet B-day. Get it? There's a B on top.
When the birthday greetings ended,
Dude, I hate local news, man. Local news works to radicalize parents in the most reactionary way possible. Like, they are such pieces of shit.
12, 13.
we found a bigger issue. 21% of our votes hadn't materialized after 4 days. And the batch we'd mailed a week prior, some of those were missing too.
So of our 100 ballots 97 arrived, which sounds pretty good, unless you consider the fact that that means 3 people who tried to vote by mail in our mock election were in fact disenfranchised by mail.
In a close election, 3% could be pivotal, especially in what's expected to be a record year for mail-in voting.
We're going to see somewhere between probably 80 and 100 million voters receiving their ballot that way.
The Postal Service says voters should mail their return ballots at least 1 week prior to the due date. But nearly half of all states still allow voters to request ballots less than a week before the election. So you can forgive the public for being a tad confused.
I like that they're saying that mail-in ballots will disenfranchise voters at a time when there is a global pandemic that makes it virtually impossible to have the same amount of in-person voting booths and polling booths, and also will literally put people's lives in jeopardy, especially older voters, for their civic duty, for exercising their duty to have a voice in American democracy. The alternative is that they just don't want anyone to vote. If it were up to Republicans and even some Democrats, especially in the primaries, we would just have landowners vote. Okay, that's what they want. They want landowners to vote. They don't want the workers to vote. And here it is.
How long do you think the post office recommends?
About 3 days, 2 to 3 days.
They're saying at least a week.
A week?
They're saying at least a week for your vote.
I just don't trust the mail. That's true.
You don't trust the mail either?
Well, I just don't. I would like to give, especially during COVID, give them ample time to deliver it.
I don't know. I'm scared that it might get lost in the mail. I just want to make sure that my vote is submitted. Like, I see that it's submitted, that it actually counts.
Tony DeCopel, CBS News, New York.
Now, let me get to the actual point about this. The reality is, are there going to be significant complications with mail-in ballots? Of course there are, okay? Of course there are. There are currently complications with, like, even during the primaries, there have been issues, some of which has been accurately pointed out here. Loss of certain mail, your mail potentially not getting counted because it takes too long to reach the place that it has to reach. There are a lot of complications with mail-in ballots. It's being made worse by Donald Trump and also the Republican Party and Congress specifically, because we need to pad these systems in order to ensure that we have a fair and as free as a voting process we possibly can have. For Trump, though, this is more significant than his calls to action or his agitations about the potential fraud that could be committed via mail-in ballots. He is setting it up so he can say that the results are illegitimate. That's it. That's the whole point. He now, as the incumbent in a position of power, also has the capacity to do certain things to make it harder for people to vote. This is one of them. Vilifying the USPS and putting in an anti-USPS as the postmaster general, and work stoppages, like enforcing work stoppages or making it slower, making this process slower, is one way to effectively vilify the USPS so you don't have to turn around and get a significant amount of pushback when we have a conversation about universal mail-in ballots. There are plenty of states that have near universal or universal mail-in ballots. Oregon is one of them. Utah has mail-in ballots, if you want a red state as an example. There is no evidence that vote by mail will lead or has led to, in areas where they have universal mail-in ballots, to any sort of complications that they're addressing. There are, of course, going to be issues, but even if you lost like fucking 20% of the mail, it's still better when you have 40 or 50% more people voting than not. It is insane that they can just openly agitate against more democracy. This is an ongoing conversation that Trump has been engaging in to vilify and delegitimize the potential results in November. Not only that, but he's also talked about how mail-in... Okay, here are some of the other tweets from Trump today. Mail-in voting is already proving to be a catastrophic disaster. Even testing areas are way off. The Dems talk of foreign influence in voting, but they know that mail-in voting is an easy way for foreign countries to enter the race. Even beyond that, there's no accurate count. Again, insanely stupid, completely unproven. This is a conspiracy theory. Is he wrong? He is wrong. It is, even if you were to think about this with just regular common sense, which Republicans love to weaponize when it comes to believing in like psychotic conspiracy theories like the world is flat or whatever, the amount of organization necessary for this is such an overwhelming task that it is impossible. You would need to have like ninjas working inside of the USPS that know exactly what mail is a Republican's mail so they can like steal it and then repurpose it, reforge your signatures. Like, even if you just can't do it, it's just completely insane. So you don't think there'd be voter fraud? No, I don't. The amount of voter fraud that occurs is so marginal. Bipartisan sources have looked into this matter for years, including Trump's very own voter fraud task force, and have found time and time again that it is not a problem that impacts the legitimacy of our elections. And Republicans have consistently used this non-issue to advocate for further disenfranchisement of voters by saying like, oh, we need voter ID. Motherfucker, we can't get millions of people in this country to vote to begin with, and you're out here worried about people that are secretly voting. They love voting so much that they're like going out. They're like, oh, there's no way I can coom. I love to vote. I'm voting. Oh, fuck. I vote long and hard into the night. I'm just voting for my dead grandparents all the time. Meanwhile, the majority of the eligible population does not vote in this country. And we're out here like having an argument about how we have to make voting even harder. Fucking idiots. There isn't voter fraud. There is election fraud. There is electoral fraud, because you can actually engage in fraudulent behavior from a top-down systemic point of view. And Republicans do it all the time, and they get caught all the time. Like in North Carolina, voting fraud exists. Kansas Republican Representative Steve Watkins charged with voter fraud. Yeah, it's so dumb. The voting fraud that occurs is marginal, completely inconsequential. Republicans have made it into a point of reference when trying to justify further disenfranchising, oftentimes black voters, but poor voters in general, black and brown voters as well. As it is with every fucking dumbass conspiracy, you would need this fraud to be so widespread that it's nearly impossible that it would not get outed. You understand that, right? The moving parts in engaging in voter fraud is so gigantic, so gigantic. So many people would have to do it successfully that you have to, like, it would break apart in the chain of command at some point, because you would have to ultimately use regular people, like average Joes. So you're saying it's technically possible? It's technically possible that I fucked your mom too. But that doesn't mean that it actually happened. It's technically possible that some of you fucking weirdo incels will maybe one day kiss a woman. But it's most likely not going to happen if you're a stupid fucking gray name with stupid fucking gray name ideas. Everything is technically possible, you dumb fuck. That's not how you work. That's not how you operate. Yeah, when Barr was asked about mail-in voter fraud evidence, he literally said, I don't have evidence, I have common sense. Which means there is no fucking evidence for voter fraud. What I tell people who are against vote by mail, so your tax return, driver's license, the thing you need to vote in person, social security cards, credit cards, debit cards, registration tags, escrow paperwork, death certificates, insurance payouts of hundreds of thousands of dollars can all go through the mail with no problem or care, but submitting your vote by mail is where you draw the line with potential mail fraud. Thank you. That's actually a really good point. Now let's get on to the last Donald Trump take, where he said that votes should be postponed. With universal mail-in voting, not absentee voting, which is good, 2020 will be the most inaccurate and fraudulent election in history. It will be a great embarrassment to the USA. Delay the election until people can properly, securely, and safely vote. Again, my man is trying to do everything he can. Now, does he have the power to do this? No. What he is doing currently, though, is not to actually make significant efforts to delay voting. It's to rile people up. It's to agitate people. And it's to further delegitimize the election results come November out of fear that he might lose. And there's a very real fear that he might lose. Joe Biden on April 23rd, mark my words, I think he's going to try to kick back the election somehow, come up with some rationale why it can't be held. Yeah, Joe Biden, in all of his brain cancer, was still able to successfully pinpoint that all the way back in April. Republican senators seem to be universally rejecting the idea of delaying the election a thread. Senator Chuck Grassley on Trump's election delay tweet. All these things are pretty well set and have been going on for decades. And so we are a country based on a rule of law, so nobody's going to change anything until we change the law. Senator Ted Cruz says, I think the election fraud is a serious problem and we need to fight it and stop it. But no, we should not delay the election. I do not support moving the presidential election, and the president does not have the unilateral power to do so, says Pat Toomey. Or the president is right to point out that universally mailing ballots to people who don't request them would likely lead to voter fraud. Oh, here we go. They're all still advocating against mail-in ballots. Some of them are even pushing back against that in the Republican Party as well. But the elections will be held on a date set by Congress on the historic date. And with regards to mail-in voting, in my state, we've had it for some time. It works extremely well. The great majority, I think almost 90% of our voters vote by mail, as I said. Senator Alexander, I think the president's term and VP's term expires on January 20th, and if we were to delay the election past January 20th, the president wouldn't be would be the Speaker of the House. So I wonder if anyone's thought about that. I'm just gonna go check the Constitution. That's actually a fun take. Yeah, Nancy Pelosi for president January 20th. So it's not going to happen. It's Donald Trump trying to disparage the results. It's not necessarily to actually delay the election, which he has no power to do so and won't be able to do. It's to say that it's delegitimate, illegitimate. It's not real. The elections are wrong. We didn't actually lose. That's what he's gearing up for. Check out Trump's most recent tweet from literally last minute. What did he fucking say now? What did this? We are going to win in the... What is he, watching my stream, dude? He's just like replying. We are going to win in the 2020 election. Big. Hashtag MAGA. Weird. Again, weird take from the incumbent. Weird take from the incumbent. Weird take from the person who's been president for the past 4 fucking years. Very weird. Glad I was able to get the very dishonest lamestream media to finally start talking about the risks to our democracy from dangerous universal mail-in voting, not absentee voting, which I totally support. I'm not going to watch Trump's live roundtable. I hate the roundtables. It's just like, if you want to watch porn, just go on Pornhub. You don't need to see geriatric men like standing around a table getting bukkakied. I'm not interested in watching that. Usually in those circumstances, they rarely ever ask Trump questions. It's just a whole bunch of guzzling going on.